Welcome to the Big Four Accounting Firms podcast, brought to you by big4accountingfirms.com. We have a great show today, but before we get to that, I wanted to remind you of a few things. In order to help us grow and bring you the best Big Four content possible, we would appreciate it if you could subscribe to this podcast, share it with a friend, and provide us with a review on iTunes. We'll provide a link in the show notes to this podcast where you can leave us with a review on iTunes. Additionally, I wanted to remind everyone to check out the show notes. We typically provide links to great content related to the show and our website in the show notes. We also provide links to all of our social media accounts in the show notes, so make sure to follow us when you get a chance to stay up to date on all the Big Four news. Thanks and enjoy the show. Today I wanted to discuss some news that Deloitte recently released about blockchain technology. We all know by now that blockchain is a new technology that is transforming financial services and the accounting industry, but it's not 100% clear yet how it will be adopted and maintained by large organizations. We've previously covered blockchain in our podcast and on our website, so make sure to check out those materials, and I'll include the details and links about those in the show notes to this podcast. Now, what Deloitte is doing is they're completely embracing blockchain's ability to change the accounting and finance industry. So what they've done in this latest press release is they've established some controls that they believe are necessary for blockchain to be widely adopted in financial services organizations. Now, the way they did this is they established 6 control principles that they believe are required for blockchain to become widely adopted. And those 6 principles are, number 1, best practice standards for blockchain development. Number 2, interoperability and system integration controls. Number 3, audit rules. Number 4, cybersecurity controls. Number 5, enhancement of traditional ICT controls. And number 6, business continuity planning. Now, let's break apart each one of those controls by themselves. The first principle that Deloitte says is necessary for blockchain adoption is a standard for blockchain development. Now, this one seems pretty obvious to me, but I guess what Deloitte is saying here is that they would like someone to come up with a standard for developing blockchains. And they don't say who they'd like that to be. And I think that Deloitte would outline who this should be, since they are trying to gain widespread adoption by their clients so that they can offer blockchain implementation services to their clients. But they leave it up to the public and governments here, I guess. And they gave a little bit of background here. They said that there are 3 macro factors necessary for blockchain standard to be established. And those factors are governance, legal and regulation, and standards. And I think this part is confusing since I think all of these overlap. And I believe standards would set the rules for blockchain governance and regulation, but Deloitte sees it differently. I think it would help if Deloitte comes out with further details as to what they mean in this area, because saying that blockchain standards for development need to be developed is very broad, and the macro factors they list out aren't very clear. Now, the second principle that Deloitte says is needed is interoperability and system integration controls. Deloitte says that in order for blockchain to be adopted, blockchain solutions need to be able to integrate with existing solutions and technologies. And blockchain solution needs to consider integration with security considerations, data integration, legacy systems, and security mechanisms. So blockchain needs to be able to integrate with all those items I just mentioned. Now, this makes sense to me, because if blockchain can't integrate with existing systems and software, then people and executives will be hesitant to build and adopt new solutions and systems. Now let's move on to the third principle. The third principle that Deloitte says is necessary for blockchain adoptions are audit rules. Deloitte says that blockchain will not replace audits, but it will transform the way people audit by changing the way data is extracted, tested, and analyzed. Now this makes sense to me too, because there are no rules for auditing blockchain, even though Deloitte has previously stated that they completed an audit of a blockchain. And it's actually funny that they would release this principle too, because it seems to conflict with the fact that they are saying they've already conducted an independent audit of blockchain. If no rules exist on how to audit a blockchain, how can Deloitte say they've already conducted an audit of a blockchain? Additionally, who is Deloitte expecting to establish these audit rules? Is it COSO, the PCAOB? Why doesn't Deloitte help in drafting these rules themselves? If they help in drafting these rules, then people can implement more solutions for blockchain, and Deloitte can get more revenue from the services they offer around blockchain. Now, the fourth principle that Deloitte says is needed for blockchain to flourish is the establishment of cybersecurity controls. They say that the foundation of blockchain technology is private and public key cryptography, digital signing, and cryptographic hashes. And the cybersecurity needs around these include management of crypto keys, management of the risk of an attacker overpowering a private blockchain. They also say there needs to be centralization of authority within a network. And there also needs to be privacy and the right to be forgotten. Now, this principle seems a little more fleshed out than the other principles and brings up some valid concerns with security within blockchain networks. It makes sense to study this principle in order to learn more about security within a blockchain network. That is, if you are trying to learn more about blockchain and become more technical in the blockchain area. The fifth principle required to help grow blockchain is the enhancement of traditional technology controls. And Deloitte says this will need to take place because blockchain is decentralized. Here Deloitte says that security management, system development, and change management, along with information processing, is usually centralized. But with the decentralization offered by blockchain, there will need to be new controls and procedures along with how those IT controls will be audited. Now, the last and sixth principle that Deloitte mentions is business continuity planning. And this involves making sure that all solutions for blockchain are somewhat integrated into a useful package that can be sustained for development in the future. In conclusion, we all know that blockchain is popular and capable of changing many industries, including the financial services industry. But there obviously needs to be a lot of progress before that happens. Now, what Deloitte has done is they've come in and established an outline of how that can take place, with 6 principles outlined in their press release. But it seems like these principles are just the bare bones and can use some further development by a firm like Deloitte or the other Big Four accounting firms. Now, I would encourage Deloitte to build out the items they've highlighted in these principles themselves to be the first to market on blockchain solutions for clients. As a Big Four professional or future Big Four professional yourself, you need to learn as much as possible on blockchain to make sure you don't get caught off guard, especially if blockchain becomes very popular in accounting and financial services. To stay up to date on all the blockchain accounting news, make sure to subscribe to this podcast. That's our show for today. Thanks for listening.